I could hear heavy breathing somewhere behind me. I look over my shoulder and I see him. He's running like a man obsessed, in regular shoes, not running shoes, with his arms moving in a really strange, stiff manner, as if he was made of metal. His hands like arrows, straight and in an upward, inward angle, sort of like a sprinter, but more extreme, moving like a robot. For the first time, he looked me straight in the eyes. You're alone. You're deep in the woods. You're running on a dimly lit trail. The cold air stings as it hits your face, and your heart pounds in rhythm with your footsteps. You've run this path dozens of times. It feels familiar and safe. But then you hear footsteps that are not yours, heavy, erratic, and much too close to you. You turn your head and you see him. Not just a fellow jogger, not someone out for a casual evening stroll. No, this man isn't running with you. He's running for you. His body moves unnaturally. It's stiff and robotic. His arms locked in an unnatural sprint. And worst of all are his eyes. They're predatory. A look that freezes your blood before your body even has time to react. You don't know who he is. You don't know what he wants, but every fiber of your being is screaming the same thing. Run. This isn't just paranoia. This isn't just a bad feeling. This is survival. Let's get into the story of the creepy forest trail man, a chilling and real-life encounter that proves some instincts should never be ignored. Hi, everyone. Welcome to or welcome back to my channel. You may know me from my true crime channel, Kimbyrleigha. I am Kimbyrleigha or Kimbyr. And on this channel, I'll be diving into some of the most interesting real-life stories from around the web, mostly focusing on one of my favorite places, which is Reddit. Now, this first story is from the Let's Not Meet subreddit, and it's entitled, I Never Run Alone Anymore. And after the story, you may not want to either. I don't ever. I'm too scared, but mostly I'm too lazy. I'm not going to lie. But let's get into this first story. Reddit user Lime Not Lemons wrote this. My New Year's resolution of 2012 was to get in shape again. After my first kid was born, I lost my athletic interest, but I had every intention of getting it back. So I started running 4 days a week with my friend Hannah, who is a great runner and motivator. We would run after work, 5 to 10 kilometers, usually favoring the forest trail. It's the kind of trail that has lighting in the darker months of the year, so you could run there anytime really. Once you turn the lights on, you got 45 minutes to run the shorter trails and longer to run the longer ones. Then the lights shut off automatically. We'd been running for about 2 months when we started seeing the same man hanging around the parking lot every time we got there. A thin man, 25, maybe 30 years of age, always dressed in sports clothes, but never actually running. He never looked you in the eye either, and I'm already thinking, he's not running, he's dressed in sports clothes, and also, how crazy is it that these lights just go off automatically? That would scare me right off the bat. But back to the story. We speculated that he could have been homeless, camping nearby because he was constantly there. We got used to seeing him, sitting somewhere close by, silently, and always on his own. We felt sorry for him. He never seemed to talk to anyone or interact at all. But there was something about him that made us hesitate to talk to him or ask if he was okay. Can't pinpoint what it was, but something wasn't completely right with him. One evening, Hannah didn't make it to our run. I knew that was happening for some reason. I was like, she's going to be alone. Hence her saying, I'll never run alone again. She said, I decided to go on my own. I arrived at the parking lot, my car being the only car there. I did some stretching, turned on the lights, and set off on the 5-kilometer trail. I hadn't seen the thin, silent man when I started my run. Perhaps it was getting too cold to sit there now that it was autumn, dark, and getting closer to the freezing point. He must have been there, though, somewhere in the shadows, because when I got to the top of the first steep hill, I could hear heavy breathing somewhere behind me. I look over my shoulder and I see him. He's running like a man obsessed, in regular shoes, not running shoes, with his arms moving in a really strange, stiff manner, as if he was made of metal. His hands like arrows, straight and in an upward, inward angle, sort of like a sprinter, but more extreme, moving like a robot. For the first time, he looked me straight in the eyes. And it was the eyes of a predatory animal, and it made my heart freeze. He had never done anything to harm me or anyone else as far as I knew, but the look in his eyes alone was enough to let me know that I was facing a serious, serious threat. I started running faster, trying to create distance between us, and I could hear his heavy breathing getting even more strained. I ran like my life depended on it, adrenaline pumping through my body and giving me new strength. I tore off my necklace and I threw it on the ground thinking, I must leave a trace if he takes me. Something must be left behind. I tried screaming, hoping someone would be close enough to hear me, but I couldn't scream my lungs out and keep up the pace at the same time. Why is he doing this? What does he want? Who is he? I thought, as I started to feel my lungs burn. And then I thought of my 15-month-old daughter, and I ran until I could taste blood in my mouth. He was still behind me, maybe 100 meters behind now, but I figured, what if I trip and fall, or run out of energy, or fumble with the car keys once I reach the parking lot? Then I'm screwed. So once I reached the sharp turn on the trail, I went off the trail and I ran straight into the dark woods. I ran only a short distance and then I laid down flat on my stomach, my hands searching for a rock to defend myself if he found me. I realized that I was wearing bright running clothes with reflectors and neon colors. I had never felt so visible in the dark before. I could hear him reach the turn and, thank God, keep on running. I started to slowly, as silently as possible, move further into the darkness. My heart sank again as soon as I heard rapid footsteps closing in from the trail. He realized that I must have gone off the trail once he saw that there was no sign of me ahead. He stopped, and I stopped. I could imagine him listening for any sound, and I held my breath and begged a God that I don't even believe in to make him go away. After a while, I heard him say something in a language I didn't recognize and walk off. I didn't move. I feared that he would wait for me by the car, and I realized I had to get off the trail and go onto the main road and stop someone. I couldn't go back to the parking lot. I started to make my way further into the woods, knowing that I would eventually end up on the last part of the long trail and close to the main road. The lights on the trail suddenly shut off. That made me calmer at first. The dark was a comfort and protection, but then after only a few moments, it switched on again. This could mean that another person had just started their run, and soon I would have someone there to help me, or that he was out there looking for me, or getting ready to prey on another lonely runner. I decided against waiting to find out, and I continued on my way towards the main road. It was dark and I fell multiple times, my clothes getting wet from the damp vegetation, and I started to get cold. After what felt like a lifetime, I could see the 10-kilometer trail ahead, and I knew I was close to the main road. Soon, I could hear traffic. Once I made it to the road, I must have looked like I had been in a terrible accident. Blood from several small cuts from me falling, my clothes dirty, and my face, I assume, petrified. My bright runner's shirt soon attracted the attention of a passing car. My waving and desperate shouting made it stop. The driver, a 40-ish man with 2 kids in the back seat, spent the next 10 minutes or so trying to make sense of what I tried to say between the sobbing and the crying. He asked if I wanted a lift back to the parking lot, and I told him no. Please take me home instead. At home, my husband insisted on going to the parking lot to retrieve the car and calling the police. And report what? I asked. No crime had been committed. I just knew he was out to get me. My husband went back for the car. The driver's side window was smashed and my phone was gone. So was the photo of my daughter that I had hanging from the mirror. That actually really scares me. I'm just going to say, when I heard that, I was like, wow. She said, I don't know what he was trying to do or why he chased me the way he did, but the look in his eyes, there was no doubt he had bad intentions. Creepy forest trail man, let's never meet again. Wow. Okay, first of all, I do want to say that I'm sorry that this poster had to go through this harrowing ordeal. It's so scary. It's exactly why I don't run on trails, and I've read and covered on my true crime channel so many terrifying stories about women who never come home. They never come home alive by merely trying to stay fit and going on a run. It's just shocking that we as women have to be afraid of something that should be safe. And I'd also like to know if any of you have experienced anything like this. Please, I read all the comments that I can, especially the ones that have the most likes. So they usually go to the top and I see those first. But tell me, have you ever had a creepy person following you or a bad experience on a run? I actually do have a story. I won't always when I'm telling these stories, but this time I can actually relate to this so much. I hate to even say that. But first, let's hear from the people in the Reddit comments, and I'll tell you my story at the very end of this video, so I tell the other stories first. One commenter said, "You should call the police. He broke into your car and stole your personal information from you. This may not be over." And I thought the same thing because I would be so scared if someone got a hold of my phone. And I'm sure you know what I mean. Our lives are in there. Our photos of our family, our kids, our banking information, so much more. The original poster wanted to know if it was easy to get into a locked phone. She said it was a Samsung Galaxy S4, not exactly new either. She said, "We didn't report it, but nothing was done apart from the insurance company paying for the smashed window." Someone added, "There's a hack that allows people to bypass the lock screen on Galaxies. The home screen flashes up very briefly, but if someone is determined and tech-savvy enough, they can download an app that will totally unlock the phone." It's an old one though, and Samsung did send through a security patch, so if you keep your software up to date, it shouldn't be an issue. Mind you, this post was from 9 years ago, so I doubt any of this applies today, but still, it is possible for someone to even pay to get into a person's phone. Now that same poster added, "Just be vigilant. And if something seems out of the ordinary, take note. The bigger concern is the fact that he knows part of your patterns and routines. Running those trails in those woods, he may have followed you home. He may have your name if it's on your phone's lock screen. He knows what your car looks like. And now he knows what your daughter looks like. Just be vigilant. Have a talk with your daughter about stranger danger, as he may try to get to her if he can't get to you." Now, I was thinking she is a 15-month-old. It's not like she's going to be wandering around. Maybe they thought she said 15 years old, but something that did shock me, and I didn't really think about this, and maybe you don't, are lock screens. Because it's usually a picture of the most important person or event or something in our life, right? Mine is John and I. What's yours? I mean, that's eye-opening to me because they could just take a picture of your actual lock screen and then they could do a Google reverse image search and they might be able to find that picture on the internet and find you on the internet. So I agree. Be vigilant. Side note, I don't want to laugh about this, but when I'm researching my true crime cases, I used to always hear the word vigil, like a candlelight vigil. Some people say that word wrong, and you know what? I don't blame you. I say a lot of things wrong. But I never realized that it originated from the word vigilant, which means to be watchful, especially when you're in danger, to avoid it. And when you do a candlelight vigil, those came from centuries and centuries ago to honor the dead and keep watch over the deceased. So I learned something new every single day. But going back to the story, another commenter said, "How terrifying. My heart was racing while reading, and I hate the fact he has your daughter's photo." The OP responded with, "Yeah, that bit kept me up at night for a long time afterward." I think that's probably the worst part. If he knew she had this young daughter, she finds out where she lives. I mean, would he kidnap her? I mean, something like that can happen. I don't think I could sleep at all until the police looked into this person. Now there are Ring cameras, which is a really good thing. It's much harder for people to get away with something like this, luckily. But someone else made a good point. They said, dropping your necklace on the ground to leave behind as a sign that you were there was a really good idea. I'm so glad you made it out of the situation unscathed. What did the police say about it? Yeah, she was literally leaving behind little breadcrumbs. It's kind of like when a victim intentionally scratches their attacker to make sure that DNA is underneath their fingernails. But that is in a more dire situation when you're up close and personal with the perpetrator. But still, I agree, that was really smart. Although I can't help but wonder, did she go back for said necklace? Because then he has something personal of yours. But she did say that they reported it, but not the very same night. She said, "When we saw the car with the window smashed, the missing photo and the phone, we decided to report it. The policeman stared at me and said, 'Okay, so you went running. You're on a running trail, and another person was running behind you. How is that a crime exactly?' Yeah, I told my story pretty much as I did on here, but no one cared that much." Wow. No, he did not just brush it off like that, sir. I mean, I think that's the issue. The issue is he's a man, sir. You don't and can't possibly know the fear that we face because of that response, but I digress. Someone named Kimbyrleigha, kind of has part of my name in there, said, "This logic blows my mind. This person is like predatory, and you were the intended victim. I really hope I'm wrong. But if someone is attacked on that path, your story might help bring that person to justice. Why on earth can't the police see that?" Typical hysterical woman bullshit. Another responded with, "I wonder if a female officer would have taken it more seriously. How awful that he didn't." Yep. And I was thinking about that. But the original poster said probably not, because it seemed like both of these officers just wanted to get out of work, which really made me sad because isn't that their job? Aren't they supposed to be passionate about serving and protecting? I don't know. Someone said, "I've started to get back to running and occasionally run at night alone. I think I'm going to stick to my treadmill if it's dark. I'm glad you made it out of that nightmare." And that is the only place that I run because of stories like that one. It's just too risky. And I hate saying that, but it's true. Now, this next story is entitled, "A Dark SUV Used to Follow Me on My Runs." This one is from the Creepy Encounters subreddit. Are you ready for this one? Here goes. I have 3 brothers. I'm the only sister in the family. All 4 of us were born within 5 years of each other. This meant that at the time my parents' messy divorce started, my mom had 4 teenagers at one time. Despite this, she worked ridiculously hard to keep us from homelessness and bad living environments. But we were left home alone a lot as young kids and teenagers. This wasn't really an issue. All of my siblings kept tabs on each other, and I think there was a natural bond and a protectiveness that we developed as a result of our less than great home life growing up. When I was alone, I liked to run. I've always liked running. I was very fast for my age and size at the time of this event, 15 years old. And the hard exercise helped me process a lot of my feelings and the issues I was going through. Plus, it was a comforting, solitary activity. I was allowed to run by myself with my headphones in our neighborhood only. I ran several miles a day for several years without ever stopping. My mom and brothers didn't worry too much because it was a pretty safe neighborhood, and truly, I outran most people I knew, except for a few older athletic types. I was running 6.5-minute miles. It was something I was really proud of. In the springtime after I turned 15, something pretty scary happened to me. A black Suburban began following me towards the end of my runs. At first, I thought it was just some jerk messing with me. Now, I'm not so sure. The first time I noticed it, I don't remember the specific month. I just know it was getting hot outside. No big deal. It's always hot in the summertime where I live. I went on my runs like normal. At the very end of all of my runs, I like to sprint as fast as I can past an imaginary predetermined finish line, the second white mailbox, the next light post, that type of thing. And I'd save just enough energy for my ending sprint. It was just something I always did. This time when I began to sprint, I saw in my peripheral vision a big, shiny black SUV accelerating past me, almost like they were racing me. It scared me initially, as the last leg of my run was generally a pretty empty street, but I chalked it up to some bored older teenager trying to race me or joke with me or something. When I crossed my imaginary finish line, they were around 30 yards ahead of me. Then they slammed on their brakes and just sat there. I panted, exhausted, hands on my knees watching them. They didn't move for several minutes, so neither did I. As the minutes ticked on, I started to get this feeling that something was wrong. A lot of my friends often think that I'm paranoid, but my mom has always told me to listen to my gut. My gut was saying I should abort mission. Get out. I jogged off into some nearby trees where some undeveloped land was between 2 neighborhoods, crouched down, and waited. The SUV drove past again on the other side in the opposite direction, slowly, and eventually drove off. I went home and said nothing to my brothers. I didn't want to stop running. The second and third times I saw it, it crept up behind me and trailed me about 15 to 20 yards back, just far enough so that I could feel it there and I could see it over my shoulder, but couldn't read the plates. That's creepy. I did notice that the windows were heavily tinted and couldn't make out any silhouette in the driver's seat. Both times I would pick up my speed a bit and it would too. I would end up sprinting as fast as I could by the end, terrified. The third time I saw it, I even jumped into someone's yard over a fence to lose them. I ended up overexerting myself and throwing up. Or maybe it was the fear. Luckily, no one was home in the yard I jumped into, and there were no dogs. After the third time, I told my oldest brother that I felt like someone was following me in a black car, but I wasn't sure and couldn't see them very well. Both times, I had this terrible gut feeling about the car. My adrenaline would kick in, my heart would pound, and I felt cold and alert to its presence. A week later, it happened a fourth time. But this time I was jogging and I had my music up, and it pulled up right behind me and honked their horn loudly. I barely turned to see what it was before the driver's side door opened and I took off. Behind me, a man's voice angrily, "Hey, hey!" I heard the door slam. A few seconds later, and the engine rev, they were chasing me. I criticized myself later for not getting the plate number, but as soon as I saw it so close behind me, I didn't think, I just ran. I still had about 50 yards to go before I could dart off onto a path behind my own neighborhood. I was sure was too narrow for them to follow me. I was booking it as fast as I could. I'm certain I have still never run this fast in my life. They would speed up and get right next to me, then fall behind a few yards again. I didn't look over, I just ran. About 20 yards from the escape path, I see someone walking toward me on the sidewalk. He was tall, but not particularly large. It was my oldest brother. My brother has some anger issues. He isn't a hothead, and that's what makes it scary. It's a cold, resolved anger. Despite his lanky appearance, he has an anger that I swear other people can feel in the room with him. No one ever really messed with him growing up. The dude was straight scary when he was mad. He must have seen my face and then the car. He picked up a sizable rock from the ground and started sprinting towards me too, and he was screaming as loud as he can and cursing. Right as I feel the SUV pulling up behind me, my brother stops and catapults this rock as hard as he can into their windshield with his arm. Crack. I reach him, gasping for air, and crumble onto the sidewalk behind him. I'm trembling in his hands. He's still headed straight for the driver's side. Now the car has stopped, and he looks livid. Their windshield upper right corner has a sizable crack across it. I have no doubt my brother is about to pull someone from their car and straight up kill them. And I'm thinking about him getting sued for property damage and arrested for murder. My mind's racing as my brother stalks towards them. They suddenly peel out. He sprints after them a ways, but obviously they lose him quickly in their vehicle. We never saw it again. I didn't run for 4 months after that, before I slowly resumed without headphones. I still run today as an adult, but I'm always on high alert for suspicious cars. I've never told my mother, who I know would have been freaked. Maybe I should have. I don't know why my brother came looking for me at the end of my run that day, but I'm so glad that he did. To this day, he says he doesn't know why either, but says, "I don't know. I just thought I should go check on you." And wow, yet again, someone that is seemingly intentionally following a woman who is running. This is like a predator after prey, and it's eerie. And this was a number of occurrences now, and her brother just sensed it for some reason, that gut feeling. I think they both had that gut feeling, right? And her mom always said, follow your gut. But to think about the fact that the door opened, that poor girl must have been so terrified. I mean, obviously, I can think of many things that they were trying to do to a 15-year-old girl, and I'm sure you know. But someone in the comments responded, "I have nothing to say except holy shit. That's terrifying. Good on you for listening to your gut." So many of us women are told to ignore, and your brother must have heard something in his gut too. And I always thought as siblings or, as family members, people have like connected gut feelings. I know I do. You might call me crazy and that's fine, but I am so connected to my own family, my loved ones, my daughters. When I feel something, it's like I can know that they're in pain or I need to do something. And I've heard this so many times in scarier stories and really sad stories about parents just knowing that something happened to their children, which is really, really heartbreaking. But it does exist. At least I think it does. Another commenter said that they were so glad that they were able to get away and that the story made them cry. They said, "I'm not sure why. Maybe it's me imagining the relief 15-year-old you would have felt realizing the tall person you're running toward was your brother. When I read that line, I thought it was an ambush Or maybe I'm crying because I imagined what could have happened. And that's true. And it got me thinking of things that we can do to protect ourselves. I mean, the mother instinct in me is trying to help anyone out there that finds themselves in this position. And you can have a personal alarm, pepper spray. You could even call 911 from your phone. I mean, obviously we know that, right? But you can have a panic button. There's actually a panic button on iPhones. I don't know if they're on Androids, but you squeeze a certain part of your phone. And then I've used it once, and then you swipe it and it actually will send an alert to the people on your list, but you have to set that up. So I'm sure there's a lot of videos about it, but those things can really come in handy, or even the Apple Watch. And a lot of runners use the Apple Watch so that they can quickly alert someone if they're in trouble, which is key. Getting someone there fast is going to save you. But I have got one more story for you, and then I will tell you one of mine. And this third story is titled Creepy Encounter on Bike Trail That Still Gets to Me. And I also found it in the Creepy Encounters subreddit. The poster wrote, okay, so this happened when I was 21. I'm a female. I'm currently 27. Back then, I believe that I made a rookie mistake, but I've since learned my lesson and have taken precautions so that this doesn't happen again. I'm an avid mountain biker. Ever since I was about 13 or 14, I've always loved riding on the trails. It was good exercise, but I mostly like to just listen to music and pedal. Never tried to time myself on a particular trail or anything. All I really did was keep track of my miles. So I remember this one day in particular. It may sound a tad bit far-fetched, so I welcome skepticism with open arms. I'm simply trying to get this off my chest, and hopefully it's a wake-up call for anyone that is as trusting as I was. So I decided to go on a day ride at this one spot. I'd been there before, but it wasn't one of my go-to trails, so I wasn't super familiar with it. I was familiar enough with it, though, to where I would be okay going down the trails that I'd done in the past. So upon getting there, I was getting my pack ready. I met this one girl that was doing the same. We started talking and hit it off pretty well. At the time, she honestly seemed like someone that I could be friends with. She introduced me to her boyfriend, who was also a mountain biker, and once again, no red flags. Very friendly. They seemed to have a very healthy relationship. They both seemed to be about my age, ballpark, give or take. They asked me if I wanted to take a ride with them down their favorite trail. I didn't see any harm in it. Plus, I wanted to learn the area better for potential future rides. So the trail was one that I had never been on before. The two of them were also faster than me, like a lot faster. I never backed down from a challenge. I kept up, albeit probably being about 10 feet behind them the whole time. We stopped briefly to take a water break, and I noticed that the girl had strategically left her backpack open, like she closed it, but then opened it back up a little bit. Seemed harmless then, but makes more sense now. Without any sort of warning, and while I was taking a pee break in the trees, the two of them started laughing and took off. I was in a compromised position, so I had to hurry up and conclude my business to be able to catch them. By the time I made it back to my bike, they were both completely out of sight. Not to mention, both of my tires had been slashed. I was stranded. I sat down for about 10 minutes to decide what I was going to do. The sun was at peak capacity, and I remember feeling extremely lightheaded, though I'm pretty sure this was related to shock. I grabbed my bike and started walking down the trail. After about 15 minutes of walking, I came across a wire on the trail. It was tied onto two smaller trees. Had I been riding, that could have easily slit my throat. But the fact that they went through the trouble of slashing my tires made me question this. I hadn't seen them, so this may or may not have been them, or they may have potentially left it there to try to snare another rider. I honestly don't know, and I don't much think about that part anymore. The what ifs make the whole thing more frustrating. Regardless, I used my Swiss Army knife to remove the wire. I wasn't about to go any further down the trail, so I pushed my bike in the opposite direction that I came from. Close to 6 miles later, I made it back to my car. There was a bike rental shop nearby that I stopped at and asked them about the two. I gave them a description of the two, but wasn't able to give them enough to have them identified. They offered to call the police, but after the day I had, I just wanted to go home. I do regret this, because over the years, I've always wondered if they did this to anyone else. I did feel a level of guilt over this. I've never been able to go back to that trail. I'm still a mountain biker, but I quit going alone since then. Thankfully, my husband is also a fellow mountain biker, and I'll always have a buddy. Please stay safe, everyone, and don't always trust a pretty face. Wow. Okay, so that last line couldn't be more scary, but true. And it doesn't always apply to women. When we think of pretty face, we might think of a woman, but I mean, think Ted Bundy, right? Smiling faces, charismatic personalities, even the Manson family, which included women. And I am sure that you've heard stories about women actually using their children to lure other women to become alone and then get kidnapped. I mean, it's actually really sad that happens. But that wire story, like the fact that there was a wire across two trees, just like that gave me chills. It's like her backpack was open and she's thinking that after the fact, because hindsight is 2020. And she's like, wait a minute, the backpack was like oddly opened. And then there was this wire. So they put that there. They put that on the trail. I mean, if it was them, right? She doesn't know if it was, but I'm thinking it was because they were just acting really suspicious. But can you imagine? That's so dangerous because you're going fast down these trails. You don't have time to find out that there's a wire that could cut your throat like that. So that gave me the chills. That really, really, really scared me. I'm also glad that she never went biking alone again. And again, it's sad, you know, that we have to make changes like that, but it could save your life. The fact that she realized how badly she could be harmed and that she lived with that for so long, repeating that over and over again. And that's something she doesn't want to think about. But someone offered this response. They said, wow, I got so mad reading this. I can't stand people like them. They're twisted and sick to find enjoyment in destroying your bike, knowing that you were stranded. I'm glad they didn't do something worse. They also went on to add this part. It's a real loss when we have to shift from viewing everyone as mostly good people into predators among us. Another commenter that I agree with said, how the hell could someone find humor in maliciously stranding a stranger who never did any harm to them? Those sadistic weirdos deserve each other. I don't think they deserve to get away with that, that's for sure. Someone else added that they were glad they turned around. They don't even want to think about what could have happened if they went further. The OP was like, the could is always something that stuck with me. I had no way of knowing if they were waiting for me further down the trail or how long the actual trail was. Yeah. And those unknowns are what causes a lot of PTSD, replaying those memories over and over again. Therapy can help because it's still traumatic, even if nothing happened. It could have. And knowing that can actually paralyze someone in the future and make things much harder. Like they don't want to act, they don't want to do things. And I know that these cases that I'm doing today are a little heavier. I have a lot of stories planned for this channel that are happier, even entertaining and funny stories. And I do also want to have some guests on my channel. I am sitting in my Dark Livity set and I'm sad that my husband's not here because I usually sit here with him. But now if you want to stay, I do have a personal story, a personal creepy encounter story. I was about 15 at the time, and I was with my best friend, and we would go jogging on the beach every afternoon after school. We both lived on the same street, so I would walk from my grandmother's house to her grandmother's condo. We both lived with our grandmothers, and then I would kind of pick her up on my way, and then we would proceed to the beach over a big bridge in Fort Lauderdale off Sunrise Boulevard. If you know, you know. We'd walk for a while all the way down to the iconic bar called the Elbow Room, and then we'd go to the water, we'd run to the water, and we'd jump in and cool down. We would go in with just our sports bras on and our little Sophie shorts. I'm sure you remember those. And we would leave our shirts on the sand and take a dip. It was really hot in South Florida at the time. It was innocent. I mean, actually, we weren't doing anything wrong. But I'll tell you this, I felt like we were after this experience, and it's definitely changed me forever. Well, we put our shirts back on, which happened to be white shirts, as I recall. And our sports bras that were wet, they were darker, and you could kind of see them through the shirts. So just envision that. So now we're walking back home, just two teenagers, unassuming, innocent, without a care in the world. And it's hot, so our clothes would usually dry fairly quickly. By the time we got to the end of A1A where the bottom of the bridge was, so we were going to cross over the street and go up the bridge back home, that's when I felt like someone was following us. Well, actually, I had seen this car go by a number of times, maybe 5, it could have been more. It was like they were going past us, turning around, and then coming back up and then like slowing down and watching us. And they're doing it again and again. And I noticed it was a male driver. He was maybe in his 20s, not bad looking, clean shaven, blonde, tan. So I kind of just shrugged it off because he didn't look weird, in my opinion, at first glance, right? So we finally get over the bridge, and now we're on a very less populated street behind the Galleria Mall where I used to live. And we're coming up to where the entrance of my neighborhood was. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, this man jumps out from behind a bush, and I was so scared. My heart felt like it was in my stomach. He was unclothed from the waist down, like nothing but eggplant. And he was doing something with eggplant. And he was screaming, "Do you like unsticks?" And he was saying this over and over again. And honestly, I had no clue what that meant, but I could sense that this man was unhinged. And this happened within seconds. So we had to think really fast. Now, my friend was a bit younger than I was, so I knew that she would rely on me to figure out what we should do to get out of the situation and get us to safety. So I began yelling really loud, and I panicked, of course, and I'm picking up the first thing I see, which is a branch. I'm waving it at him, and I'm actually screaming the R word. I'm sorry, but that's the first thing that came to my mind. And he wasn't giving up. He would not let us pass. So I looked at my friend, and we just sprinted as fast as we could right past him. I knew that there was a security guard at the gate to my neighborhood, but he wasn't always there. And I was praying that he was, but he wasn't. And I just kept running. And then I realized that the psycho was right behind us, and I couldn't believe it. I was like, where is he going without pants on? It was insane. But luckily, there was a guy mowing his lawn at the first house to the right when I got in my neighborhood, and I screamed, "Call the police." And that man ran and did just that. He did not hesitate, and that was so important. Then the security guard was alerted, and he was patrolling the area. He gets the call. He races over there. I couldn't believe it, but the police actually captured this guy. Now, I was surprised when I learned he was married and he had a newborn baby at home, because that shocked me. What the hell was he doing stalking teenagers? That's what I want to know. Then we had to pick him out of a lineup, which we did, which was very traumatic. And then we had to go to court and make statements. And it was a lot for two young girls like us to go through. Not to mention, this man's wife harassed my friend for years afterwards because she was accusing us of lying and sending her husband to jail, because this was not his first offense. This was not the first time he had done this. And I'm sorry, but what? How is that any of our fault at all? But I lived in such fear for so many years. I mean, this whole thing was so traumatic. And by the way, I'm not going to always share stories like this. I think I mentioned that before, but this just happened to be one that was so eerily similar. And if it can help any of you to know what to do in these situations, I'm not an expert in it, but I would say for me, being very loud, drawing attention to where we were, this was a public place, so I was kind of shocked somebody would be doing this. But please, if you feel so inclined and vulnerable and brave to share your stories below, I want this to be a community where we do feel comfortable. Don't forget to subscribe to this new channel. It would mean a lot to me. And I will see you in my very next video. Bye.